The year was 1960. Detroit was obsessed with one thing: bigger, faster, more powerful V8s. Every major automaker was locked in an arms race. Horsepower numbers were climbing. Chrome was everywhere. Muscle cars were about to explode onto the scene. And buried beneath all that excitement was an engine that looked completely out of place. It wasn't a V8. It wasn't glamorous, and it wasn't supposed to become a legend. But what almost nobody knows is that this humble engine would become one of the most loved engineering projects Chrysler ever built, while simultaneously becoming one of the most frustrating engines the company's executives ever had to deal with. Because the better it performed, the harder it became to replace. This is the story of the Chrysler Slant-Six, the engine that engineers loved and executives hated. Most people have no idea how unusual this engine really was. When Chrysler engineers began developing a new inline-six during the late 1950s, they weren't trying to build a race engine. They weren't trying to build a performance icon. They were trying to solve a practical problem. American cars were getting larger. Customers expected reliability. Fleet operators demanded durability. And Chrysler needed an engine that could survive years of abuse without complaint. The engineering team faced a challenge that many companies struggled with during that era. How do you build an engine that appeals to everyday drivers while also satisfying the demands of commercial operators who would run these motors 12 hours a day, 7 days a week? The answer required thinking differently. Most automakers stuck with traditional designs: upright inline-sixes, conventional V8s, standard engineering approaches that had worked for decades. Chrysler's team decided to experiment. The result was unlike anything on the market. Instead of standing upright like a traditional inline-six, the new engine leaned over at a dramatic 30-degree angle. That's where the name came from. At first glance, it looked strange, almost awkward. Some dealers reportedly questioned whether customers would accept such an unusual design. But there was a reason. By tilting the engine, engineers created room for longer intake runners. Air could flow more smoothly into the cylinders. The lower profile also allowed sleeker hood designs. The tilted configuration meant the carburetor sat higher, improving fuel distribution across all 6 cylinders. In a traditional upright inline-six, the end cylinders sometimes ran leaner or richer than the middle ones. The Slant-Six minimized that problem. Simple, elegant, effective. But the innovation didn't stop there. The engineering team obsessed over details that most manufacturers overlooked. They analyzed how heat transferred through the block. They studied vibration patterns. They tested different bearing configurations. They weren't just building an engine. They were building something meant to outlast the vehicles it powered. The original family arrived in 1960 with 3 versions: a 170 cubic inch model, a 198 cubic inch version, and later, the famous 225 cubic inch variant. The 225 would become the star. With a bore of 3.40 inches and a stroke of 4.125 inches, it was a long stroke design built for torque rather than high RPM power. That long stroke meant the pistons traveled a greater distance with each revolution. More distance equals more leverage. More leverage equals more torque. And torque is what matters when you're hauling cargo or merging onto a highway with a full load of passengers. Depending on configuration, output ranged from roughly 145 horsepower to over 215 horsepower in performance trim, with torque figures approaching 240 pound-feet. Those numbers don't sound impressive today. Modern 4-cylinder engines often exceed those figures. But that wasn't the point. This engine wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to survive, and that would create a problem nobody expected. Because once customers started driving them, they discovered something remarkable. These engines simply refused to die. Owners began reporting experiences that seemed impossible. Engines running past 200,000 miles without major repairs. Engines surviving neglect that would have destroyed competitors. Stories spread through mechanic shops, through taxi companies, through police departments that ran these engines in patrol cars. The reputation grew organically, one satisfied customer at a time. But there was a problem. The very qualities that made engineers proud were creating headaches inside Chrysler's boardrooms. Most companies love repeat customers, but if an engine lasts forever, customers don't buy replacement parts. They don't need major repairs, and they don't feel pressure to upgrade. Engineers celebrated durability. Executives saw shrinking service revenue. Accountants looked at the numbers and saw money left on the table. In the automotive business model of that era, parts and service represented significant profit centers. An engine that rarely broke meant fewer parts sold, fewer service appointments, less revenue flowing through dealership service departments. The conflict had begun. Then something unexpected happened. The Slant-Six started proving itself in racing. In 1960, Chrysler introduced the Hyper-Pak performance package, and suddenly this economy engine became a giant killer. The Hyper-Pak version used a long ram intake manifold, higher compression pistons, a performance camshaft, and a 4-barrel carburetor. Compression climbed to around 10, horsepower jumped to roughly 196. That was serious power for a compact 6-cylinder engine in 1960. The transformation was remarkable. The same basic engine that powered taxicabs and delivery trucks could suddenly compete with purpose-built performance engines. At the NASCAR compact car races held at Daytona that year, drivers running Hyper-Pak-equipped Valiants shocked the competition. The Slant-Six dominated its class. Some cars averaged speeds above 130 miles per hour. On a beach course where engine reliability was just as important as outright power, the Slant-Six excelled. Competitors watched in disbelief. Engineers couldn't believe it. An economy engine was embarrassing purpose-built competitors. One Chrysler engineer reportedly joked that they had accidentally built a race motor while trying to build a commuter engine. The racing success created unexpected marketing opportunities. Suddenly, Chrysler could advertise the Slant-Six as both economical and powerful, but success created a new challenge. Because now the engine wasn't just durable, it was respected. And replacing a respected engine is much harder than replacing a mediocre one. What they discovered next changed everything. As the years passed, stories about the Slant-Six became almost mythical. Taxi fleets ran them non-stop. Delivery companies abused them daily. Farmers worked them relentlessly. Police departments subjected them to the worst possible duty cycles. Long periods of idling followed by sudden full-throttle acceleration, stop-and-go traffic, high-speed pursuits. The Slant-Six handled it all. Mechanics began sharing stories that sounded impossible. Engines running hundreds of thousands of miles. Engines surviving severe overheating. Engines continuing to run after years of neglect. Some owners forgot basic maintenance entirely. Oil changes got skipped. Cooling system maintenance got ignored. Timing chains ran well beyond their recommended service life. The Slant-Six often kept going anyway. Part of the reason was its construction. The block was incredibly robust. Cast iron construction with thick cylinder walls provided strength that aluminum blocks couldn't match. The crankshaft rode on 7 main bearings. Most competitors used fewer. 4 main bearings were common in many inline-sixes of that era. Some manufacturers used 5. Chrysler used 7. That extra support reduced vibration and increased durability. The forged steel crank could absorb punishment that destroyed lesser engines. Each bearing reduced the unsupported span of the crankshaft. Less flex meant less stress. Less stress meant longer life. The cooling system was generous. Water jackets surrounded each cylinder with adequate coolant flow. The oiling system was reliable. A simple but effective design that ensured lubrication reached critical components even under extreme conditions. The bottom end was practically overbuilt. Some engineers privately admitted they had designed certain components with safety factors that exceeded normal standards. Better too strong than too weak. One mechanic famously remarked, "The rest of the car falls apart before the engine notices." And honestly, he wasn't far off. Bodies rusted, transmissions failed, suspension components wore out. The Slant-Six kept running. By the late 1960s, Chrysler engineers had accumulated mountains of reliability data. Some test engines ran continuously for months, running on dynamometers at constant load, simulating the kind of abuse no customer would ever inflict. Others endured torture tests designed to expose weaknesses, tests that involved deliberately running engines low on oil, tests that simulated extreme temperature cycling, tests that pushed components beyond any reasonable limit. Yet failures remained surprisingly rare. When problems did occur, they usually involved external components: water pumps, alternators, carburetors, fuel pumps, starters. The core engine itself often survived. Technicians could replace accessories and send vehicles back into service with the original engine still performing perfectly. But executives were growing impatient. The automotive world was changing. Customers wanted newer technology. Competitors were introducing modern engines. Marketing departments wanted fresh selling points. How do you convince customers to buy something new when the old thing works perfectly? That question haunted Chrysler for decades. Every product planning meeting brought the same debate. Engineers would present data showing the Slant-Six's continued reliability. Executives would counter with arguments about marketing perception and the need for innovation. Accountants would calculate the cost of maintaining aging production equipment. And every time, the conclusion was the same: the Slant-Six stayed. Because despite everything, it still made business sense. The tooling was paid for, the supply chain was established, the reliability was proven. Replacing it would require massive investment. And then, the emissions era arrived. The Clean Air Act and increasingly strict emissions regulations forced automakers into a difficult position. High compression ratios disappeared, horsepower numbers fell, fuel economy became critical, catalytic converters added weight and restriction, exhaust gas recirculation systems reduced efficiency, air pumps and other emissions control devices added complexity. Many engines struggled to adapt. The Slant-Six didn't escape unscathed. Compression ratios dropped, power outputs declined. Some versions produced around 100 to 110 horsepower by the mid-1970s. On paper, that looked disappointing, especially compared to the engine's earlier performance. But something interesting happened. The engine remained dependable. While newer designs sometimes battled emissions-related drivability issues, the Slant-Six continued doing what it always did: starting, running, surviving. The simplicity that once seemed old-fashioned became an advantage. Fewer complex systems meant fewer things to malfunction. Most people don't realize how important that became during the 1970s. Many American engines suffered reliability problems as manufacturers rushed to meet regulations. Carburetors struggled with emissions equipment. Ignition systems became finicky. Drivability suffered as engineers tried to balance emissions, performance, and economy. The Slant-Six earned an even stronger reputation because it remained predictable. You could trust it. It might not be quick, it might not be exciting, but it would start on cold mornings. It would run all day without complaint. It would get you home. And trust is difficult to measure on a sales brochure, but customers noticed. Fleet managers definitely noticed. When you're running a business that depends on vehicles, reliability matters more than horsepower numbers. But there was another problem. Its durability was becoming a trap. Every year, Chrysler spent money maintaining production lines for an engine that had debuted in 1960. Every year, executives pushed for replacements. Every year, engineers defended it. The internal battle continued. One executive reportedly described the engine as too old to market and too good to kill. That single sentence perfectly captured the situation. How do you advertise an engine designed before computers were common? How do you make a decades-old design sound appealing to customers shopping for modern vehicles? But how do you justify killing something that still outperforms newer alternatives in the areas that matter most to certain customers? The paradox was maddening. And then the real nightmare started. By the 1980s, automotive technology was advancing rapidly. Fuel injection was becoming common, computer controls were spreading, front-wheel drive platforms were reshaping the industry. Overhead cam designs were replacing pushrod engines in many applications. The Slant-Six suddenly looked ancient. Its cast iron architecture dated back decades. Its basic design belonged to another era. From a corporate perspective, keeping it alive made less and less sense. The production equipment was aging. Finding suppliers for certain components became more difficult as the industry moved forward. Training new workers on decades-old manufacturing processes created challenges. But from an engineering perspective, replacing it wasn't easy. because every proposed successor had to match its legendary durability. And that's where things became complicated. Many newer engines offered better efficiency. Some offered lower manufacturing costs. Others offered improved emissions performance, better power-to-weight ratios, more modern features, but few matched the Slant-Six's reputation for surviving abuse. Fleet operators noticed, truck owners noticed, mechanics definitely noticed, and customer loyalty remained strong. Some buyers specifically sought vehicles equipped with the old six-cylinder. Think about that for a moment. Customers were actively choosing a design that originated before the Beatles released their first album. That's how much trust the engine had earned. Meanwhile, production numbers continued climbing. Over its lifetime, more than 4 million Slant-Six engines would be built. 4 million. That isn't just successful, that's extraordinary, especially for an engine many executives wanted gone years earlier. The final years felt almost symbolic. Automotive technology was moving toward the future. Fuel injection, electronic controls, aerodynamics, computers, and sitting quietly in the background was a rugged old inline-six that refused to disappear. Production finally ended in 1987, after 27 years, nearly 3 decades, an eternity in automotive terms. When the last Slant-Six rolled off the production line, an era ended. Workers who had spent their entire careers building that engine saw the final unit completed. Some reportedly felt genuine sadness. They had built millions of engines that earned Chrysler an unshakable reputation for durability. But something fascinating happened afterward. The legend only grew. Collectors began seeking them out. Hot rodders discovered their potential. Racers continued experimenting with performance builds. Enthusiasts shared stories online. The mythology expanded. People started realizing what had been lost. Modern engines offered more power and better efficiency, but they often lacked the simple ruggedness that made the Slant-Six special. Some modified examples exceeded 300 horsepower. Turbocharged builds pushed even higher. With modern fuel injection and engine management systems, enthusiasts discovered the engine's potential had never been fully explored. The same engine, once dismissed as outdated, kept finding new ways to impress people. You can probably guess what happened next. Values started climbing. Vehicles equipped with Slant-Six engines became more desirable. Interest increased, and a whole new generation discovered what older mechanics had known for decades. The Slant-Six wasn't exciting because it was fast. It was exciting because it represented something rare: engineering honesty, a machine built to solve a problem rather than impress a marketing department. That's why engineers loved it. Every design choice had a purpose: the slanted block, the long intake runners, the 7 main bearing crankshaft, the overbuilt bottom end, the emphasis on durability over headlines. It wasn't flashy, it was smart, and that's exactly why executives often hated it. Because smart engineering doesn't always align with business goals. Sometimes the best product is the hardest product to replace. Sometimes excellence creates its own problems. And that was the Slant-Six's greatest achievement. It became so reliable that it outlived the plans made to replace it. Multiple replacement programs were proposed. Alternative engines were developed. Successor designs were tested. But the Slant-Six remained, outlasting corporate strategies, surviving management changes, persisting through industry transformations. That's a rare thing in any industry, not just automobiles. In the end, the Chrysler Slant-Six didn't dominate because it made the most horsepower. It didn't become legendary because it won the most races. It became legendary because it earned something even harder to achieve: trust. For nearly 3 decades, it started every morning, survived unbelievable abuse, and proved that great engineering often outlasts corporate strategy. The engine that engineers loved, the engine executives hated, and perhaps the most stubborn survivor Chrysler ever built. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments which legendary engine you'd like to see next. And make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the machines, rivalries, and engineering masterpieces that shaped automotive history.